Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to the Whispering Bee. This is where real stories about love, friendship, betrayal, and healing come alive. No sugarcoating, no fairy tales, just raw, honest tales about the messy, beautiful reality of human connection. Whether you are healing from heartbreak, navigating complicated relationships, or simply love powerful stories that feel real, this channel is for you. Subscribe and join our community. Hit that notification bell because new stories drop regularly and you will not want to miss them. Remember, every ending is just a new beginning in disguise. You know, when I think back to who I was before that day, before everything changed, I barely recognized that man. I was 34 years old, married for 9 years, father to 2 beautiful kids, Emma, who was 7, and Jack, who had just turned 5. I had what everyone told me was the life. A comfortable suburban home with a 2-car garage and a lawn I mowed every Sunday. A decent job in sales that paid the bills and then some. A wife who I thought was my partner, my best friend, my forever person. Evelyn and I had met in college. She was studying marketing, I was in business administration. We met at one of those terrible house parties where the music's too loud and the beer's too cheap. But somehow, in all that chaos, we found each other. I still remember seeing her across the room, laughing with her friends, and thinking I need to know that woman. We dated for 3 years before I proposed. I did the whole thing, got down on one knee at the restaurant where we had our first real date, had the ring in my pocket for 2 weeks before I found the courage to actually do it. She said yes, and I felt like the luckiest man alive. The first few years of marriage were good, really good. We traveled when we could afford it, nothing fancy, road trips mostly, camping in national parks, that kind of thing. We'd stay up late talking about our dreams, planning the family we would have someday, the house we'd buy, the life we'd build together. When Emma was born, I thought my heart would explode from how much love I felt. Then Jack came along 2 years later, and our family felt complete. But somewhere between Jack's birth and that terrible day, things had shifted. I didn't see it at the time, or maybe I didn't want to see it. Evelyn had gone back to work part-time when Jack turned 3, taking a position at a marketing firm downtown. She seemed happier, more energized. I thought it was good for her, getting back into her career, having adult conversations that didn't revolve around Paw Patrol and potty training. She started working longer hours, going out with colleagues for drinks after work, taking weekend trips for team-building retreats. I didn't question it. Why would I? I trusted her completely. We'd built a life together, made vows, created 2 human beings. In my mind, we were solid, unshakable. I was wrong. It was a Thursday evening in March. I remember because Jack had a soccer game that Saturday and Emma was excited about a school field trip coming up on Friday. Just normal, everyday family life. Evelyn had texted me that she'd be home late again, another work thing. I'd fed the kids, helped Emma with her homework, given Jack his bath, read them both stories, and tucked them in. I was sitting on the couch, probably scrolling through my phone, half watching some show on Netflix. Evelyn's iPad was on the kitchen countertop. She'd left it there that morning, which was unusual because she normally took it to work. Her iPad buzzed on the kitchen counter, where she'd left it charging. I wasn't trying to snoop. I want to be clear about that. I walked over to see if it was her calling or texting, maybe to say she was on her way home. The screen lit up with a text notification, and what I saw there, I can still feel my stomach drop when I think about it. The preview on the lock screen read, "Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you. When can I see you again?" My hands started shaking. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I told myself there was an explanation. Maybe it was a friend. Maybe I was misreading it. Maybe I unlocked her iPad. I knew her passcode. We'd never kept secrets like that from each other. Or so I thought. What I found in her messages destroyed everything I believed about my life, my marriage, my reality. Months of messages, photos, explicit conversations, plans to meet up, hotel reservations, him telling her he loved her saying it back, references to when you leave him and our future together, details about their sexual encounters that made me physically ill. His name was Titus. He worked at her firm. I'd met him once at a company holiday party, shook his hand, made small talk. He'd smiled at me while knowing he was sleeping with my wife. I don't know how long I sat there scrolling through those messages. It could have been 10 minutes or an hour. Time stopped making sense. Each message was another knife in my chest. Each photo, thank God they weren't fully explicit, but suggestive enough made me want to vomit. The worst ones were the ones where they talked about my kids. Evelyn had told him about Emma's recital, about Jack learning to ride his bike, about our family vacation plans. She'd shared our intimate family moments with the man she was betraying me with. That felt like a violation beyond even the affair itself. When I heard her car pull into the driveway, I was still sitting there, her iPad in my hand, tears streaming down my face. The garage door opened. I heard her heels clicking on the concrete floor. The door from the garage to the kitchen opened. "Hey, sorry I'm so late," the meeting ran. She stopped mid-sentence when she saw me, saw her iPad in my hand, saw my face. "Who the F is Titus?" I asked. My voice didn't sound like my own. It was cold, flat, dead. The color drained from her face. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. It's not. Let me explain. Who the crap is Titus? What followed was 4 hours of hell. Evelyn tried denial at first. "It's not what it looks like. We're just friends," the usual lies. But I had the evidence right there. I read messages back to her. Her own words, undeniable and damning. When she finally broke down and admitted it, I almost wished she'd kept lying. The truth was worse than I'd imagined. It had been going on for 7 months. 7 months. More than half a year of lies, of her coming home and kissing me hello with the same mouth that had been on him. Of her sleeping in our bed, the bed where we'd conceived our children, while texting him goodnight. Of family dinners where she'd sit there with Emma and Jack, smiling and asking about their day while planning her next meetup with her lover. She cried. God, she cried. Said she never meant for it to happen. That it just developed over time. That she still loved me. That she was confused. That Titus had been there for her when I'd been emotionally distant. That last one particularly stung, so this was somehow my fault. I wanted to scream, to throw things, to put my fist through a wall. But Emma and Jack were asleep upstairs, and the last thing I wanted was for them to wake up to their parents having a screaming match at midnight. So I kept my voice low and controlled, even though every word felt like glass in my throat. "How could you do this to us, to our family, to our kids?" "I don't know," she sobbed. "I don't know. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, sorry." As if sorry could undo 7 months of betrayal. As if sorry could erase the images now burned into my brain. As if sorry could make me unknow what I knew. I asked her if she loved him. She hesitated before saying, "I don't know, maybe. I'm confused." She was confused. Meanwhile, my entire world had just collapsed and she was confused. I asked her if she was planning to leave me for him. Another hesitation. I hadn't decided yet, she finally admitted. So I was on trial and didn't even know it. My marriage, my family, my life all hanging in the balance while she decided whether to stay with her husband and children or run off with her coworker. I told her to sleep in the guest room. She begged to stay in our bed, to talk more, to work through it. I couldn't even look at her. "Guest room. Now, or leave the house, your choice." She went to the guest room. I lay awake in our bed, my bed. I corrected myself, not hours anymore staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through every interaction over the past 7 months. Every time she'd checked her phone and smiled. Every late night at work. Every time she'd been distant or distracted or had turned away from me in bed saying she was tired. How had I missed it? How had I been so blind? Around 3 a.m., exhausted but unable to sleep, I got up and checked on the kids. Emma was sprawled across her bed, one leg hanging off the side, her stuffed elephant clutched to her chest. Jack was curled up in a little ball, his nightlight casting a soft glow across his peaceful face. Looking at them, sleeping so innocently, not knowing that tomorrow they'd wake up to a different world, something broke inside me. They didn't ask for any of this. They didn't deserve any of this. And that's when the thought first entered my mind, maybe I should stay, for them, to keep their world intact, to protect them from the fallout. That thought in that moment felt noble, selfless, the mark of a good father. It was actually the beginning of the worst decision of my life. When Emma and Jack bounded into my room the next morning, full of energy and questions about breakfast and school and completely oblivious to the fact that their family had imploded 12 hours earlier, I had to physically force myself to smile. "Morning, kiddos," I managed. "How about pancakes?" Evelyn appeared in the doorway, looking like she hadn't slept either. Her eyes were red and swollen. Emma noticed immediately. "Mommy, why are your eyes puffy?" "Oh, honey, I just have allergies," Evelyn said, her voice cracking slightly. "Nothing to worry about. We made it through breakfast by some miracle." I flipped pancakes on autopilot while Evelyn poured orange juice, and we both pretended everything was normal. The kids chattered about their upcoming day, and I responded at appropriate times, but I felt like I was watching the scene from outside my body. After we got them off to school, Evelyn took them in her car because I didn't trust myself to drive safely. We sat down at the kitchen table to talk. "So what happens now?" she asked quietly. "Good question. What does happen after you discover your wife's been having an affair for 7 months and hasn't decided if she wants to stay married to you or run off with her lover?" "You end it with him," I said. "Today, right now. Call him or text him or however you communicate with him, and you end it. Immediately." She nodded. "Okay, yes, I will. And you quit that job. I don't want you anywhere near him. That's my career, my income." "You had a coitus with a coworker for 7 months while lying to your husband and kids," I said, my voice harder than I intended. "Your career at that firm is over. Find another job. There are other marketing firms." She flinched but nodded again. "Okay. And we're going to marriage counseling. If there's any chance of salvaging this, we need professional help." "Yes, absolutely. Whatever you need." What I needed was to go back in time and have a faithful wife, but that wasn't an option. She pulled out her phone right there at the table and texted Titus, "It's over. Don't contact me again. My husband knows everything." Then she showed me the message before sending it, blocked his number, and deleted their entire conversation history. Too little, too late, but it was something. Over the next few days, word started getting out. Evelyn told her parents. I told mine. The responses were complicated. My parents were furious with Evelyn. My dad, a traditional guy who'd been married to my mom for 40 years, could barely speak to her. "How could she do this to you?" he kept asking. "How could she do this to those kids?" My mom was more measured but equally disappointed. She did, however, say something that stuck with me. "You need to think about what's best for Emma and Jack. Sometimes staying together for the kids' sake is the right thing to do." Evelyn's parents were more defensive of their daughter. Her mother actually said, "Well, marriage is hard. Sometimes people make mistakes. What matters is if you can forgive and move forward." Her father was quieter but clearly uncomfortable, caught between supporting his daughter and acknowledging what she'd done was wrong. Then there were the friends. We told a few close couples, people we'd known for years, done family vacations with, whose kids played with our kids. The reactions were mixed. Some were supportive of whatever I decided. "We're here for you no matter what." Others had strong opinions. One friend, Dave, who I'd known since college, pulled me aside and said, "Brother, you need to leave. Now, she cheated on you for 7 months. 7 months isn't a mistake, it's a choice she made every single day. She doesn't respect you." But there were also the voices, and there were many who said some version of, "Think of the kids. Don't you want them to have an intact family? Don't you want them to grow up in a stable home with both parents? Divorce is so hard on children. Studies show kids from broken homes struggle more. Can't you at least try to work it out? Isn't your marriage worth fighting for?" My neighbor, a divorced dad who saw his own kids every other weekend, told me, "Man, if I could do it over, I'd have tried harder to make it work. Now I miss half of my kids' lives. Bedtimes I'm not there for. Mornings I don't see them. School events where I feel like an outsider. Don't make my mistake." Even our pediatrician, when I took Jack in for a routine checkup and happened to mention we were going through a rough patch, said, "Children thrive on stability. 2 parents in the home, even if the marriage is struggling, is often better than the disruption of divorce." Everyone had an opinion. Everyone thought they knew what was best for my family. And the dominant narrative, the one I heard over and over, was, "Stay for the kids. Keep the family together. You can work through this. Think of Emma and Jack." We started seeing Dr. Susan Graham, a marriage counselor who came highly recommended. Her office was in a converted Victorian house downtown, all soft colors and comfortable furniture designed to make you feel safe enough to expose your wounds. The first session was brutal. Dr. Graham asked each of us to explain our perspective. Evelyn talked about feeling neglected, about how I'd been focused on work and hadn't been emotionally present, about how Titus had paid attention to her, made her feel valued and attractive and interesting. When it was my turn, I said, "My wife had an affair for 7 months, lied to me daily, and still hasn't decided if she wants to be married to me. That's my perspective." Dr. Graham didn't flinch. "I understand you're in tremendous pain. The betrayal you've experienced is one of the deepest wounds a person can endure." And Evelyn, While your feelings of neglect may have created vulnerability, they don't justify the affair. We need to be clear about that. Evelyn nodded, crying again. She cried a lot in those early sessions. The question now, Dr. Graham continued, is whether this marriage can be rebuilt. Rebuilding after infidelity is possible, but it requires complete honesty, genuine remorse, and hard work from both parties. Evelyn, you'll need to take full responsibility for your choices and do the work to rebuild trust. Dr. Graham looked at me and said you will need to decide if you're capable of truly forgiving her, because without forgiveness, reconciliation is impossible. Over the next several weeks, we went to therapy twice a week. Dr. Graham taught us communication techniques. We talked about the holes in our marriage that had created space for the affair. We discussed boundaries and transparency and what rebuilding trust would look like. Evelyn quit her job, as promised. She was applying to other firms but hadn't landed anything yet. She was home more now, which was both good and terrible. Good because she was more present with the kids. Terrible because I had to see her every day and pretend I was working toward forgiveness when some days I couldn't even stand to be in the same room with her. She wanted to touch me, to hug me, to reconnect physically. I couldn't. The thought of being intimate with her made my skin crawl. I kept seeing her with him. Every time she reached for me, I'd stiffen and pull away and she'd look hurt, which would make me feel guilty, which would make me angry because why should I feel guilty? Dr. Graham said this was normal. Physical reconnection takes time. Don't force it before you're ready. But Evelyn was frustrated. How can we rebuild our marriage if you won't even let me touch you? She asked one night. How can I let you touch me when 3 months ago you were banging another man? I shot back. These fights happen more frequently. Usually late at night after the kids were asleep when we could finally drop the happy family pretense we maintained during the day. Because that's what we were doing, pretending. For Emma and Jack, we pretended everything was fine. We smiled. We joked. We did family movie nights and helped with homework and went to soccer games and dance recitals, all while our marriage was held together with duct tape and delusion. The kids seemed happy. They noticed nothing wrong, and that became my justification for staying. In therapy, Dr. Graham asked me one day, "Why do you want to save this marriage?" I thought about it for a long time. Finally, I said, because I don't want my kids growing up in a broken home, because I don't want to be a weekend dad. Because I don't want to split holidays and miss half their lives. Because every expert and every friend and every article I've read says that staying together is better for kids than divorce. And what about what you want? She asked. What about your happiness, your emotional well-being? I'm their father, I said. Their well-being comes before mine. Dr. Graham was quiet for a moment. Then she said something I didn't fully understand at the time. A martyr makes a poor parent. I didn't know what she meant. I thought I was being selfless, noble, doing the hard thing for the right reasons. I wasn't. I was building a prison for myself, brick by brick, and calling it sacrifice. 6 months after D-Day, that's what they call it in the infidelity support forums I'd started reading late at night. Discovery Day, we'd settled into a new routine. Evelyn had found a new job at a different firm across town. She was, by all appearances, trying. She was transparent with her phone, gave me passwords to everything, checked in frequently when she was out, came home on time, put real effort into the kids. She was also seeing her own therapist to work through whatever had led her to have the affair in the first place. Dr. Graham had recommended this, said that Evelyn needed to understand her own patterns and choices if we had any hope of making sure it didn't happen again. From the outside, we probably looked like we were healing. Friends would ask how we were doing, and I'd say we're working through it, taking it day by day. They'd nod approvingly, happy we were fighting for our marriage, but inside I was dying. The thing about deciding to stay for the kids is that you have to live with your decision every single day. Every morning I woke up next to a woman who'd betrayed me. Every night I went to bed next to her, maintaining separate sides of the mattress like there was an invisible wall between us. We did coitus exactly twice in those 6 months, awkward, disconnected attempts to rebuild intimacy that left me feeling worse than before. I couldn't stop thinking about her affair. I'd be at work in the middle of a sales call, and suddenly I'd flash to one of those messages. I love the way you taste. I'd be playing catch with Jack in the backyard, and my mind would conjure the image of her in a hotel room with him. I'd be sitting at dinner with the family, Emma chattering about her day at school, and I'd look at Evelyn and think, you did this to us. You destroyed everything. The affair thoughts became intrusive, invasive, unrelenting. They called it mind movies in the forums, where your brain creating vivid scenarios of your spouse with their affair partner. I had them constantly, at random times, in brilliant, torturous detail. I started having anxiety attacks, waking up in the middle of the night with my heart racing, unable to breathe. I'd go downstairs and sit in the dark living room, trying to calm down, trying to convince myself that I was doing the right thing by staying. I lost 15 pounds because my appetite had vanished. Food tasted like cardboard. Well-meaning friends would say I looked good, that I'd lost weight. I'd smile and say I'd been working out more. In reality, I was withering from the inside out. Evelyn would ask, "How can I help? What do you need from me?" What I needed was for her to not have banged Titus for 7 months. What I needed was to not know what I knew. What I needed was impossible. I just need time, I'd say. More time, always more time. Time to heal, time to forgive, time to rebuild. But time wasn't healing me. Time was just teaching me how to function while wounded. Emma, 7 years old, started asking questions. Why don't you and Mommy hug anymore? Why don't you hold hands like you used to? Why do you sleep on opposite sides of the bed? Kids notice everything. Mommy and Daddy are just, we're fine, sweetie. Grown-ups show love in different ways. She looked at me with those wise little eyes that saw too much and said, "Are you and Mommy going to get divorced?" My heart stopped. "No, baby. No, we're not. We're a family. We'll always be a family. Promise, I promise, and I meant it." In that moment, looking at her worried little face, I meant it with everything in me. I was staying. I had to stay. For her. For Jack. For the promise of keeping our family intact. Even if it was killing me. Even if the family I was trying to preserve was already broken. Even if staying together was actually worse for all of us than splitting up would be. I didn't see it yet. I was too committed to the narrative. Staying for the kids is the right thing. Divorce would hurt them. An intact family, even a damaged one, is better than a broken one. It would take another 1.5 years of slow destruction before I realized how wrong I was. About 8 months after D-Day, something shifted in me. The raw, acute pain of the betrayal had dulled into something else. Resentment. Deep, bitter, corrosive resentment. I resented Evelyn for what she'd done to us. Obviously. But I also resented her for my decision to stay. Which wasn't logical. I had made that choice, but emotion is not logical. I resented that she got to move on with her life while I was still stuck in the trauma of her choices. She'd go to work, come home, play with the kids, make dinner, laugh at their jokes, tuck them in at night, and seem fine. Meanwhile, I was barely holding myself together. I resented every small request she made. "Can you pick up Emma from dance? I have a meeting that might run late." The old me would have said, of course, without a second thought. The new me thought, "You had 7 months of meetings that ran late so you could bang Titus, and now you want me to do you favors." I resented the good moments. When we'd have a family day at the park and Emma and Jack would be laughing and playing, and Evelyn would smile at me like, "Look at our beautiful family," I'd feel rage instead of happiness. Because this beautiful family, she'd risked it. She'd gambled with it. She'd been willing to blow it all up for hotel room sex with a coworker. I resented her attempts at affection. She'd try to hold my hand on the couch while we watched TV, a normal couple thing, and I'd pull away. She'd look hurt. I'd feel guilty. Then I'd resent her for making me feel guilty for not wanting to hold the hand that had been all over another man. I resented therapy. Every week, sitting in Dr. Graham's office, talking about the affair like it was some abstract concept instead of the thing that had destroyed my sense of reality. Discussing rebuilding trust when trust felt impossible. Working on communication. When I didn't want to communicate, I wanted to scream, to break things, to make Evelyn feel even a fraction of the pain I felt. But most of all, I resented the kids. And that's what terrified me. Not all the time, but sometimes. When Emma would ask me to play dolls with her and all I wanted to do was lie in bed and stare at the ceiling. When Jack would wake me up on a Saturday morning at 6 a.m., full of energy, wanting to play superheroes, and I'd have to drag myself out of bed and be Dad when I felt like an empty shell. I was staying for them. I'd sacrificed my own happiness, my own dignity, my own mental health for them. And sometimes in dark moments, I'm ashamed to admit I resented them for it. I never acted on it. I never took it out on them. I smiled and played dolls and superheroes and went to school events and coached Jack's soccer team and helped Emma with her math homework. I was a good dad on the outside, but inside I was rotting. 1.5 years after D-Day. Spring again. Almost the anniversary of the day my world ended, which felt appropriately symbolic in a dark way. Evelyn and I were in a strange place. We'd achieved what Dr. Graham called stable dysfunction. We coexisted. We parented together. We maintained the household. To any outside observer, we looked like a normal married couple who'd weathered a rough patch. But we weren't intimate. We barely talked beyond logistics: who's picking up which kid, what's for dinner, did you pay the electric bill? We slept in the same bed but might as well have been on different planets. Evelyn had stopped trying to reconnect physically. After countless rejections, she'd given up. She'd said to me one night, "I can't keep apologizing forever. At some point, you either forgive me or you don't. But I can't live in this limbo where I'm perpetually punished for a mistake I made 2 years ago." Mistake I'd repeated. 7 months is a lot of mistakes. Poor choice of words. My affair. The affair I chose to have, that I take full responsibility for, that I've apologized for 1,000 times. But I can't change the past. I can only try to make the future better. And you won't let me. I'm here, aren't I? I stayed. I didn't leave. You're physically here. But you're not really here. You're like a ghost in this house. She wasn't wrong. The breaking point came on a random Wednesday in April. I was loading the dishwasher after dinner. Jack had spaghetti sauce somehow in his hair despite the food going nowhere near his head. Emma had chattered about a boy in her class named Tyler who pulled her hair, which apparently meant he liked her. Evelyn had asked about my day, and I'd given my standard fine response. Normal. Painfully, soul-crushingly normal. Jack ran up to me and wrapped his arms around my legs. "I love you, Daddy." I looked down at his happy, innocent face. "I love you too, buddy. Can we play soccer after homework?" "Sure thing." He ran off to get his cleats from the garage. Evelyn was wiping down the table. Emma was already at the kitchen counter with her math worksheet. And I stood there, hands in dishwater, and thought, I can't do this anymore. No, I shouldn't. No, I don't want to. I can't. Physically, mentally, emotionally, I had nothing left. I was empty. I'd been running on fumes for so long that the engine was about to seize up completely. I dried my hands and walked outside to the back porch. Evelyn followed me. "What's wrong?" "Everything." The word came out before I could stop it. "Okay, what specifically? This, us, the lie we're living." "We're not lying. We're a family. We're working through things. We're not working through anything, Evelyn. We're existing next to each other. I can't remember the last time I felt genuinely happy. I can't remember what it feels like to not be angry or hurt or numb. So what are you saying?" "I don't know. This isn't working. You want to leave." "Did I? I want to not feel like this anymore." "Then let it go," she said, her voice rising. "For God's sake, let it go." I made a mistake, guys, a prolonged, terrible mistake, but I ended it. I've done everything you asked. I quit my job, I went to therapy, I've been completely transparent. What more do you want from me? "I want you to not have done it in the first place," I shouted. "I want those 7 months back. I want to not know what I know. I want to not have these images in my head every single day." Emma appeared in the doorway. "Why are you yelling?" We both stopped, frozen. I have no idea how long she'd been standing there or what she'd heard. "Sorry, sweetie," Evelyn said, immediately switching to calm parent mode. "Daddy and I were just having a disagreement. Grown-up stuff. Everything's fine. You said you were fighting about 7 months. What does that mean?" My heart sank. She'd heard more than we thought. It's complicated, honey. Mommy and I just disagree about something that happened a while ago, but we're okay." Emma looked at me, waiting for me to confirm that everything was okay. Everything was fine, we were fine. I said, "We're okay." Emma didn't look convinced, but she nodded and went back inside. Evelyn and I stood there in silence. Finally, she said, "So what happens now?" "I don't know. Do you want a divorce?" The question hung in the air. Did I? Yes. No, maybe. I was so tired I could barely think straight. "I don't know," I said again. "I just know I can't keep living like this." "Then what do you need?" What I needed was a time machine. What I needed was for none of this to have ever happened. What I needed was impossible. Space. I need space. Space meaning what? I don't know. Maybe I move into the guest room. Maybe I stay somewhere else for a few days. I just need to think. And what do we tell the kids? "I don't know, Evelyn. I don't have all the answers. You blew up our lives, not me." She flinched. "You're right. You're absolutely right. Do whatever you need to do. Take whatever space you need. I'll handle the kids." I moved into the guest room that night. Told the kids I had a cold and didn't want to get Mommy sick. They accepted this explanation without question. I lay in that unfamiliar bed, in that room that smelled like old books and dust, and thought about my marriage, my family, my life. I thought about leaving, really leaving, getting a divorce, splitting custody, starting over. But then I thought about Emma asking, "Why are you yelling?" and the fear in her voice. I thought about Jack's innocent "I love you, Daddy" just an hour before. I thought about being a part-time dad, missing half their lives. And I talked myself back from the edge. Again, I told myself, you're just having a bad day. Everyone has rough patches. Marriage is hard. You knew it would be hard work after the affair. You committed to this. Think of the kids, stay for the kids, stay for the kids. That mantra had become my prison bars, but I couldn't see it yet. I moved back into the master bedroom after a week in the guest room. Evelyn was relieved. I was resigned. The pattern continued. Good days were tolerable. Bad days were awful. Most days were somewhere in between: flat, gray, endurable, but not enjoyable. I threw myself into work, started taking on extra clients, working longer hours. Not because I loved my job, I didn't, but because work was an escape. At work, I didn't have to think about my failed marriage or my compromised integrity or the fact that I was living a half-life. I was successful, actually. Got promoted to senior sales manager. Got a decent raise. Everyone at the office thought I was killing it. "You're on fire this year," my boss said. Yeah, on fire in the way things are on fire when they're burning to the ground. I also started drinking more. Alcohol was a coping mechanism, having seen what it did to my uncle. But coffee during the day, energy drinks when I needed a boost, melatonin at night because I couldn't sleep, sometimes mixing in an edible cannabis because it was legal in our state and it at least quieted my brain for a few hours. I wasn't an addict. I was just medicating, self-soothing, finding ways to make the days bearable. Evelyn noticed. "You're going to give yourself a heart attack with all that caffeine," she'd say. "Worry about yourself," I'd reply. We were roommates who happened to be married. Co-parents who occasionally made small talk. We attended Emma's dance recitals and Jack's soccer games and had family dinners and helped with homework and from the outside looked completely normal. Emma was 9 now, Jack was 7. They were growing up so fast. Emma was getting interested in boys and worried about her appearance and starting to have that preteen attitude. Jack was reading chapter books and getting into video games and asking deep questions about life and death and the universe. They were amazing kids. Funny, smart, kind, creative. Everyone said so. Teachers loved them. Other parents complimented us on how well-behaved and polite they were. "You're doing something right," one mom said to me at a birthday party. Was I, though? What was I doing right? Staying in a dead marriage, modeling a relationship devoid of affection and intimacy, teaching them that you should stay in situations that make you miserable out of obligation. That mom didn't know what happened behind our closed doors. Nobody did. We were good at the facade, really good. But Emma was starting to ask more questions. "Dad, do you still love Mom?" "Of course, sweetie." "Why would you ask that?" "Because you don't act like you love her. You don't kiss her or hug her or say nice things to her like other dads do. Well, grown-up love is different than kid love. It's more quiet." Jack was less verbal about it but showed his stress in other ways. He started having nightmares, wetting the bed occasionally, something he hadn't done since he was 4, getting upset over minor things that normally wouldn't bother him. The pediatrician suggested it might be anxiety, gave us resources for child therapists. Evelyn and I looked at each other across the doctor's office, both thinking the same thing. Our son has anxiety because he's living in a household where the tension is so thick you could cut it with a knife. But we didn't say that out loud. Instead, we took the resources and thanked the doctor and took Jack home and continued pretending everything was fine. 2 years and 4 months after D-Day, I found myself sitting in a school parking lot at 2:47 p.m., waiting to pick up Emma from her after-school art class, and I realized something that made my blood run cold. I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt joy. Not contentment or satisfaction or relief that a hard day was over. Joy. Actual, genuine, uncomplicated happiness. I scrolled back through my mental calendar. Months ago, a year, more, I'd felt pride when Emma performed in her recital. I'd felt affection when Jack fell asleep on my lap during a movie. I'd felt satisfaction when I closed a big sale at work. But joy, that pure, light feeling of being happy to be alive, being excited about the day ahead, laughing until my stomach hurt, feeling grateful for my life. I couldn't remember it. At some point over the past 2 years, joy had quietly slipped out of my life and I hadn't even noticed it leaving. The passenger door opened and Emma climbed in, chattering about her art project. "We're doing self-portraits and Ms. Rodriguez said mine really captured my personality and Dad. Dad, are you okay?" I was crying. Right there in the school parking lot, tears running down my face, unable to stop them. "Dad, what's wrong? Are you hurt?" No, baby, I'm fine. I'm okay. Just, sometimes grown-ups cry too. It's okay. Why are you crying? Because I love you so much, I said, which was true but not the whole truth. The whole truth was, I'm crying because I've spent 2 years sacrificing my happiness for you and your brother. And I'm starting to realize it might have been for nothing. She hugged me, 9-year-old arms wrapped around my neck, small and strong. I love you too, Daddy. We drove home in silence. She didn't push for more explanation, which I was grateful for. That night, after the kids were in bed, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I really looked at Evelyn. Not with anger or resentment or the weight of history, but as objectively as I could manage. She was sitting on the couch reading a book. She looked older than she had 3 years ago, we both did. There were lines around her eyes that hadn't been there before. Her hair had a few gray strands now. She looked tired. I wondered what she saw when she looked at me. Probably the same thing, a person worn down by time and pain and the slow grind of a broken relationship neither of us had the courage to end. Can I ask you something? I said. She looked up from her book. Of course. Are you happy? She was quiet for a long moment. Define happy. Do you wake up in the morning and feel good about your life? Do you look forward to your days? Do you feel? I don't know. Joy, another pause, not really. But I'm content. I have the kids, I have a job I like, I have a home, that's enough. Is it? It has to be, but what if it doesn't? What if we're both just existing, going through the motions? What kind of life is that? It's the life we chose. You chose to stay. I chose to fix my mistakes. We're doing our best. What if our best isn't good enough? She closed her book. Where is this coming from? I realized today that I can't remember the last time I was truly happy, and that scares the hell out of me. So you're unhappy. We've established that. You've been unhappy for 2 years, but you stay. Why, if you're so miserable, why do you stay? The kids fish the kids, I stared at her. She'd never talked like that about them. Not fish the kids like I don't care about them, she clarified quickly. But stop using them as an excuse. You stay because you're afraid. You're afraid of change. You're afraid of being alone. You're afraid of being the bad guy who broke up the family. You hide behind staying for the kids because it sounds noble, but really, you're just scared. Her words hit like a slap, maybe because they were true. And you want to know something? She continued. I don't think you're actually staying for the kids. I think you're staying to punish me. Every day you're here, miserable and cold and distant, is a day you get to remind me what I did. You're not staying for them. You're staying to make me feel guilty. That's not, isn't it? Really. You say you're being selfless and sacrificing for the children, but have you considered that maybe, just maybe, you staying is actually worse for them? That growing up watching their parents in a loveless marriage might be more damaging than divorce. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, but the words caught in my throat. Because what if she was right? What if staying for the kids had been the wrong choice all along? What if I'd wasted 2 years being a martyr when I should have been making a clean break? What if, in trying to protect Emma and Jack from divorce, I'd actually been harming them by modeling the worst possible version of marriage? I went to bed that night with those questions spinning in my head. I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling and thought about the past 2 years and what I had to show for them. A marriage that was more dead than alive. Kids who were developing anxiety because they could sense something was wrong. A version of myself I barely recognized, bitter, joyless. I'd stayed for the kids, but I was starting to realize I hadn't actually been present for them. I'd been physically there but emotionally absent, too consumed by my own pain and resentment to truly show up as the father they deserved. The worst part? I still couldn't bring myself to leave. Even knowing all of this, I couldn't take that step. The fear was too strong. The guilt too heavy. The societal pressure too loud. So I did what I'd been doing for 2 years. I got up the next morning, made breakfast, got the kids ready for school, went to work, came home, had dinner, helped with homework, tucked them in, and went to bed. Rinse and repeat. The horrible situation continued. It was a Saturday morning in late September, 2 years and 7 months after D-Day, when I finally admitted I needed help. Not couples counseling, not marriage counseling, individual therapy. For me. I'd been putting it off for years, thinking I could handle it on my own, that I just needed to be strong, that therapy was for people who were really struggling. Never mind that I was absolutely one of those people. I found a therapist named Dr. Titus Connor Different Titus, Universe's little joke who specialized in men's mental health and depression. His office was downtown, 30-minute drive from home, which felt far enough away that I could be honest without worrying about running into anyone I knew. First session, he asked me why I'd made the appointment. I gave him the sanitized version. My wife had an affair a few years ago. I decided to stay for our kids. It's been hard. How hard? Pretty hard. He waited. He was good at that, sitting in silence, letting the discomfort build until I felt compelled to fill it. I'm not sure I made the right choice, I finally admitted. Staying? Yeah, why did you stay? For the kids. I didn't want them growing up in a broken home. And how's that working out? I laughed, bitter and sharp. Honestly, not great. Tell me about your average day, so I did. I walked him through a typical weekday. Wake up at 6 a.m., lie in bed for 15 minutes dreading the day ahead, force myself up, make coffee, wake the kids, make breakfast, small talk with Evelyn about schedules, get Emma and Jack ready for school, drive them, go to work, push through the day on caffeine and willpower, come home exhausted, help with homework while resenting every request for help, make or heat up dinner, clean up, spend an hour with the kids trying to be present but mostly just going through the motions. Put them to bed, collapse on the couch, scroll through my phone for 2 hours not really looking at anything, take melatonin, go to bed, lie awake replaying my wife's affair, finally fall asleep around 1 a.m., wake up at 6 a.m. to do it all over again. When I finished, Dr. Connor said, "That's not a life. That's survival." The words hit me like a truck. Yeah, it is. You're depressed. Clinically, significantly depressed. Have been for a while, I'd guess. I'm functional. I go to work. I take care of the kids. Depression doesn't always look like lying in bed unable to move. Sometimes it looks exactly like what you just described, going through the motions, feeling flat and disconnected, existing but not living. So what do I do? First, we talk about medication. Depression is often a chemical issue, not just a situational one. Even if your circumstances are genuinely difficult, your brain chemistry can amplify the suffering. An antidepressant might help take the edge off. I don't want to be medicated. Why not? Because, I don't know, isn't that giving up? Admitting I can't handle my life? Or it's recognizing you have an illness that responds to treatment? Would you refuse insulin if you were diabetic? Fair point. I'll think about it. Second, we need to talk about your marriage. You've spent nearly 3 years in a relationship that sounds toxic for both of you. You say you're staying for the kids, but let me ask you this. What are you teaching your kids about marriage? I thought about Emma's question. Do you still love mom? I thought about Jack's anxiety and nightmares. Not great things, I admitted. Children learn more from what we model than what we tell them. If you stay in an unhappy marriage for them, you're teaching them that marriage is about obligation and misery. That love is something you grit your teeth and endure. Is that the lesson you want them to learn? No. Then let's talk about what you actually want, not what you think you should do for everyone else. Over the next several weeks, I saw Dr. Connor twice a week. We dug deep into my patterns. My people-pleasing tendencies, my fear of conflict, my need to be seen as the good guy, my terror of failure. He helped me see that my decision to stay wasn't actually about protecting Emma and Jack. It was about protecting myself from judgment, from guilt, from having to admit my marriage had failed, from the uncertainty of starting over. You're not staying for your kids, he said in our 5th session. You're staying because you're afraid. Evelyn had said the same thing months ago, but I hadn't been ready to hear it. Now, with Dr. Connor's help, I was starting to. We also talked about the affair and my lingering trauma from it. He explained that what I was experiencing, the intrusive thoughts, the hypervigilance, the inability to trust. The constant state of anxiety was consistent with PTSD. Infidelity trauma is real trauma, he explained. Your nervous system has been in fight or flight mode for nearly 3 years. That's not sustainable. He taught me breathing exercises, meditation, techniques to manage the intrusive thoughts when they came. Slowly, very slowly, I started to feel a little more in control of my own mind, and I started medication. Low dose of an SSRI. Within a few weeks, the constant static of anxiety in my brain had, not disappeared, but quieted. I could think more clearly. The dark fog that had been suffocating me for years lifted slightly. It wasn't a magic fix. I was still unhappy in my marriage, still resentful, still stuck. But I had just enough clarity to start asking better questions. Like, what do I actually want my life to look like? And what am I willing to do to get there? It was Jack who finally broke through my denial. He was 8 years old. Smart, sensitive, observant. One evening, while I was tucking him into bed, he asked, "Dad, why do you and Mom pretend to be happy?" My heart stopped. "What do you mean, buddy? You smile when other people are around, but when it's just us, you look sad. And Mom looks sad too. You're pretending." I wanted to deny it, to feed him the line about grown-up love being complicated. But I couldn't, not to those big, honest eyes. "How long have you known we were pretending?" He shrugged. "A while, maybe always. I don't remember you being not pretend." God, he was 8. The affair was nearly 3 years ago. For half his conscious life, he'd been living in a house full of pretense. "I'm sorry, Jack. You shouldn't have to see us like that. It's okay. I just wish you were happy for real." "Me too, buddy. Are you going to get divorced?" There it was. The question I'd been dreading for 3 years. I could lie. Could say no, we'll work it out, everything will be fine. But I was tired of lying. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Maybe. Would that scare you?" He thought about it seriously, a little. "But Caleb's parents are divorced and he says it's not that bad. He has 2 houses and gets 2 Christmases and his parents don't fight anymore." That's true. Some kids handle divorce just fine. Would you and Mom still be friends? We'd try our best to be, because we both love you and Emma more than anything. Would I still see both of you, every single week? We'd make sure of that. Okay. He paused. "Dad, yeah, buddy, if you did get divorced, would you be happy then?" Jesus. 8 years old and asking the questions that mattered most. "I think I'd have a better chance at being happy, yeah. Then maybe you should do it." I looked at my son, this wise little person who I'd been trying to protect by staying in a miserable marriage, and realized he didn't need my protection from divorce. He needed my example of what it looked like to choose happiness, to have courage, to not settle for a life that was slowly killing me. "Maybe I should," I whispered. I kissed his forehead, told him I loved him, and turned out his light. Then I went downstairs and found Evelyn in the kitchen, loading the dishwasher. "We need to talk," I said. Evelyn and I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd eaten thousands of meals, helped the kids with countless homework assignments, had so many conversations about nothing and everything. "Jack asked if we're going to get divorced," I started. "What did you tell him?" "The truth, that I don't know." She nodded, unsurprised. "Emma asked me the same thing last week." We sat in silence for a moment. "I can't do this anymore, Evelyn. I know, I've tried. God knows I've tried." I stayed. I went to therapy. I worked on forgiveness. I did everything everyone said I should do, and I'm still miserable. We're both miserable. And the kids know it. "I know," she said again, quieter. "So what do we do?" She looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in months. "I think you know what we need to do. Divorce." "Yeah, divorce." The word hung between us. 3 years ago, that word had felt like the worst possible outcome. Now it felt like relief. "I'm sorry," she said, and for the first time in 3 years, her apology felt genuine instead of desperate. "I'm sorry I had the affair. I'm sorry I put you through this. And I'm sorry we wasted 3 years trying to salvage something that was already dead. I'm sorry, too. Sorry I stayed out of fear instead of having the courage to leave when I should have. Sorry I punished you for 3 years. Sorry I modeled a terrible marriage for our kids. We both made mistakes. Different mistakes, but yeah. So, what's next? Do we tell the kids? Call lawyers? I think we see Dr. Graham one more time. Figure out how to do this in the healthiest way possible for Emma and Jack. Then yeah, lawyers." Evelyn nodded. "Okay." We sat there a bit longer. 3 years of pain and resentment and regret between us, but also 9 years of history before that. It wasn't all bad. We'd had good years. We'd made beautiful children together. We'd loved each other once, genuinely. But that love was gone, buried under betrayal and bitterness and the slow decay of pretending. "For what it's worth," Evelyn said, "I do think you're a good father. You stayed because you thought it was best for them. That counts for something. I stayed because I was scared. Jack helped me see that tonight. Still, your heart was in the right place even if the decision was wrong. Thanks." Another pause. "Then can I say something that might sound weird?" "Sure." "I'm relieved. I've been waiting for 3 years for you to end this because I didn't have the right to after what I did. But I'm so relieved you finally said it. You could have left any time." "No, I couldn't. I'm the one who cheated. I'm the one who broke us. I didn't get to be the one who walked away." Fair point. We sat there until midnight, working out initial logistics. How to tell the kids. When to tell extended family. The practicalities of who would move out. How to split custody. We agreed to aim for 50-50 if possible. It was the most productive, honest conversation we'd had in 3 years. When I finally went to bed in the guest room that night, it felt appropriate. I felt something I hadn't felt in so long. Hope. Dr. Graham had given us specific advice on how to tell Emma and Jack about the divorce. Do it together as a united front. Be honest but age appropriate. Reassure them it's not their fault. Don't badmouth each other. Focus on the practical details. They'll care about where they'll live. When they'll see each parent, what stays the same. We sat them down on a Saturday morning. Emma was 10 now, Jack was 8. Old enough to understand, but young enough that this would shape them for life. Evelyn and I sat on the couch. The kids sat across from us on the love seat, sensing something serious was coming. Emma, Jack, I started, your mom and I need to talk to you about something important. Emma's face immediately tensed. Jack grabbed his sister's hand. Evelyn took over. You both know that Dad and I have been going through a hard time for a while now. We've been trying to work things out, but we've realized that sometimes, even when people try their best, they're better off as friends than as husband and wife. You're getting divorced, Emma said flatly. Yes, honey, we're getting divorced. Jack's eyes filled with tears. Is it because of me? Did I do something wrong? My heart broke. I moved to sit next to him, pulled him into my lap even though he was probably too old for that now. No, buddy, God, no, this has nothing to do with you or Emma. Sometimes grown-ups just. We've grown apart. We still love each other, but not in the marriage way anymore. Is it because Mom had an affair? Emma asked. Evelyn and I exchanged shocked looks. How do you know about that? Evelyn asked. I heard you fighting about it a long time ago. About someone named Titus. Jesus, she'd known. For years, she'd known. That's part of it, I admitted. No point in lying now. Your mom made some choices that hurt me, and I made the choice to stay and try to work it out. But we've realized that staying together isn't making anyone happy, not me, not your mom, and not you too. So you're leaving because you're not happy. Emma's voice had an edge to it. We're separating because we think we can all be healthier and happier if your mom and I aren't married anymore. We're still a family. That doesn't change. We'll both still be your parents forever. But you won't live together, Jack said, tears streaming down his face. No, buddy, I'll get an apartment nearby. You'll stay here with Mom most of the time, and you'll come stay with me too. We're working out a schedule where you'll see both of us all the time. Can I stay in my room? In this house? Emma asked. Absolutely. Nothing about your life here changes. Same house, same room, same school, same friends. We spent the next hour answering their questions. Where would I live? When would we split up? Would we both come to their school events? What about holidays? Could they have a say in the custody arrangement? Emma took it hard but tried to be strong, the oldest child syndrome. Jack cried openly. Evelyn cried. I almost did but held it together because I felt like I needed to be the stable one in that moment. When the initial conversation was done, Emma went to her room. Jack stayed with us. Dad, he asked quietly. Yeah, buddy. Are you going to be happy now? I think I'm going to try to be, yeah, good, I want you to be happy. He hugged me and I lost it. Tears came and I couldn't stop them. My 8-year-old son was comforting me about my own divorce. Evelyn reached over and squeezed my shoulder. No words, just that gesture of shared parenting, shared grief, shared relief. We were doing this. We were really doing this. The next 2 months were a blur of lawyers, paperwork, financial negotiations, and practical arrangements. Evelyn and I had agreed to try for an amicable divorce. We weren't friends, but we weren't enemies either. We were just two people who needed to untangle their lives with the least amount of damage possible, especially to our kids. We hired a mediator instead of going the adversarial lawyer route. Her name was Patricia Gonzalez, and she was a no-nonsense professional who'd seen 1,000 divorces and knew exactly how to cut through emotional bullshit to get to the practical solutions. First, finances. We'd bought our house 7 years ago, still had a mortgage but decent equity. We agreed Evelyn would keep the house, and I'd take my share of the equity as a cash payment that she'd pay out over time. Fair or not, kids needed stability, and staying in their home provided that. Second, debt. We had some car loans, credit cards, student loans from years ago. We split it proportionally based on our incomes. I made slightly more, so I took slightly more debt. Third, retirement accounts, investments, savings. We split everything down the middle. California was a community property state, so this was pretty straightforward. Fourth, custody. This was the big one. The one that could get messy and awful and traumatizing for everyone if we weren't careful. We agreed on 50-50 physical custody. We'd share legal custody, equally meaning all major decisions about school, health, religion, etc. would be made together. We'd both stay in the same school district so the kids wouldn't have to change schools. We'd coordinate on activities and not badmouth each other to the kids. We'd be flexible with the schedule when one of us had a work conflict or the kids had a special event. On paper, it all looked very civilized and reasonable. In reality, it was terrifying. I was going to be a part-time dad. I'd miss half their lives. There would be school mornings I wouldn't see them. Bedtimes I wouldn't do. inside jokes I wouldn't be part of, a whole parallel life happening in Evelyn's house that I'd only hear about secondhand. But I reminded myself, this was still better than staying, better than continuing to model a dead marriage, better than the slow decay we'd all been living in. I found an apartment 3 miles from the house. 2-bedroom, so the kids could each have their own space when they stayed with me. It was a generic modern complex, the kind with gray vinyl floors and white walls and stainless steel appliances that looked good but felt sterile. I furnished it from IKEA and Facebook Marketplace. Got the kids involved in picking out decorations for their rooms. Emma wanted purple walls, Jack wanted superhero posters. We made it work. Moving day was surreal. Packing up my stuff from the house Evelyn and I had shared for 7 years. Our wedding photos were still on the wall, we hadn't gotten around to taking them down. Pictures of us with baby Emma, toddler Jack. Evidence of a life that had been real once, but now felt like a fiction. Evelyn helped me pack. We were civil, functional, occasionally even kind to each other. The venom had drained out somewhere along the way. We were both just tired. I hope you find what you're looking for, she said as I loaded the last box into my car. Same to you. Think we'll ever be friends again? Maybe. Someday. After enough time has passed. I'd like that. Me too. I drove away from that house where I'd lived for 7 years, where my kids had grown up, where my marriage had died, and toward my new apartment, my new life, my unknown future. The first night in my apartment, I sat on my new IKEA couch in my mostly empty living room and thought, what now? I'd spent 3 years desperate to leave, and now that I had, I felt disoriented, unmoored. The apartment was too quiet. At home, former home, I corrected myself, there was always noise. Kids playing, TV on, Evelyn moving around the kitchen. Here, there was just silence. I ordered pizza. Ate it alone while watching Netflix on my laptop since I hadn't set up the TV yet. Went to bed at 9 p.m. because there was nothing else to do. Woke up at 2 a.m. with a panic attack. What have I done? Did I just blow up my family for nothing? Am I going to be alone forever? What if the kids end up hating me for this? Called Dr. Connor the next morning. He talked me down. You're grieving. Not just the marriage, but the life you thought you'd have. The family structure you wanted to preserve. The identity of being a husband. This is normal. You're going to have good days and bad days. The trajectory is what matters, not any single moment. The first weekend without the kids was the hardest. Saturday morning, I woke up and instinctively listened for the sound of little feet running down the hallway. Nothing, just silence. No pancakes to make. No soccer game to attend. No cartoons on too loud. No, Dad, watch this. No, can we go to the park? Just me and an empty apartment. I went to the gym. Lifted weights until my arms shook. Came home, showered, made lunch, still only 1 p.m. The day stretched ahead, empty and interminable. I called my friend Dave. Want to grab a beer? Sure, man, you okay? Just adjusting. We met at a sports bar. Watched a game I didn't care about. He asked how I was doing. It's weird, I admitted. I fought so hard to get out, and now I'm out and I don't know what to do with myself. You built your whole life around being a husband and dad. Now you're still a dad, but half-time and not a husband at all. It's like, you have to figure out who you are again. Yeah, that's exactly it. It gets better, man, I promise. You just need time. The first week the kids were with me, I overplanned everything. Made elaborate dinners. Planned activities every night. Took them to the trampoline park, the movies, out for ice cream. I was like a divorced dad cliché, trying to buy their love or compensate for breaking up the family. Emma called me on it. Dad, you don't have to do stuff with us all the time. We're fine just hanging out. I want you guys to have fun here, to want to be here. We're going to be here because we love you, not because you take us to fancy places. She was 10 years old and wiser than me. So the next week, we just lived. They did homework at the kitchen table while I made dinner. We watched TV together. Jack built Lego sets on the living room floor. Emma video chatted with her friends in her room. Normal life, just in a different location. And it was okay. Not perfect, not without moments of sadness and weirdness, but okay. Around month 3 post-separation, something started to shift. I'd been so focused on surviving the practical aspects of divorce, managing the kids' adjustment, handling my own grief that I hadn't noticed I was starting to feel lighter. One morning, I woke up before my alarm and realized I'd slept through the night. No insomnia. No 2 a.m. panic attacks. Just solid, restful sleep. Another day, I was making coffee and found myself humming. Actually humming. Like a person who was content. Small things started bringing me joy again. Reading a book without feeling guilty about not doing something productive. Going for a run just because I wanted to, not to escape my thoughts. Trying a new recipe and actually enjoying the process of cooking. I started saying yes to things I'd turned down for years. Dave invited me to join his recreational basketball league. I'd always said no, too busy with family stuff, too tired, not interested. This time I said yes. Turned out I loved it. The physical release, the camaraderie, the feeling of being part of something outside my family identity. I started going to therapy once a week instead of twice. Not because I didn't need it, but because I needed it less urgently. Dr. Connor and I shifted from crisis management to actual growth work. You're doing better, he observed one session. I really am. What's different? I thought about it, I think. I'm not spending all my energy pretending anymore. I can just be. And being is enough. I also started dealing with the trauma from the affair. We did EMDR therapy, eye movement desensitization, and reprocessing help process the memories that still haunted me. It was hard work, painful, but effective. The intrusive thoughts about Evelyn and Titus decreased. Not gone completely, but they no longer controlled me. I could have a random memory pop up and acknowledge it, yeah, that happened, it hurt, and let it pass instead of spiraling into hours of rumination. I started dating cautiously, downloaded a dating app. Went on a few first dates that went nowhere. That was okay. I wasn't looking for a new wife. I was just opening myself back up to the possibility of connection. Met a woman named Jessica at a coffee shop. She was a teacher, divorced like me, 2 kids of her own. We went on a few dates, talked honestly about our situations, shared war stories from our marriages, eventually decided we were better as friends. But the experience of dating of someone finding me interesting and attractive, of having adult conversation that wasn't about logistics or kids, did wonders for my confidence. I joined a divorced dad's support group, sat in a church basement with 8 other guys going through various stages of separation and divorce, heard their stories, shared mine. One guy, Tom, told us about staying for 10 years after he found out about his wife's affair. 10 years of my life I'll never get back, he said. My kids are in college now. They tell me they wish we'd divorced sooner, that it was obvious to them how miserable I was. Another guy, Raphael, had left as soon as he found out about the cheating. Hardest thing I ever did, he said, but best thing too. My kids adjusted fine. Better than they're happy because I'm happy. Kids don't need perfect situations. They need authentic parents. Listening to these men, I realized I'd wasted 3 years, but it could have been worse. I could have stayed 5 years, 10 years, until the kids were grown, and I'd sacrificed my entire adult life. 3 years was bad, but I'd caught myself before it became 10. One of the ironies of my divorce, getting out of that miserable marriage, was the best thing that ever happened to my career. For 3 years, I'd been going through the motions at work. I was good enough to not get fired, successful enough to get decent raises, but I wasn't really present. I was just surviving. Once I left, once I had my own space and my mental health started improving, I had energy again, actual energy. The kind that comes from sleeping well and not being in constant emotional pain. I started taking my career seriously again, reached out to clients I'd been neglecting, built deeper relationships, actually cared about their success instead of just trying to close deals. Within 6 months of the separation, I'd had my best quarter ever. My boss noticed. Whatever you're doing differently, keep doing it, he said. What I was doing differently was being mentally healthy enough to actually do my job well. A year after the separation, I got recruited by a competitor. Bigger company, better territory, 40% pay increase plus equity. I took it. The extra money made a huge difference. Contribute to retirement. Take the kids on a real vacation, not a Disney vacation, relaxed beach week where we just hung out together. Money doesn't buy happiness, but financial security sure removes a lot of stress. I also started investing in myself in ways I'd neglected. Bought a gym membership and actually used it. Upgraded my wardrobe from dad who's given up to adult who has his shit together. Got a better haircut. Nothing radical, just taking care of myself. The physical changes came next. I'd lost weight during the worst of the marriage crisis stress, and no appetite will do that. But it wasn't healthy weight loss. I'd been skinny in a gaunt, unhealthy way. Now I was working out consistently, lifting weights, running, actually eating proper meals because I had the mental energy to care about nutrition. The weight I put back on was muscle. I looked in the mirror one day and didn't recognize myself, not in a bad way. In a, oh, there I am, I remember this person way. The biggest surprise of the divorce, Emma and Jack were okay. Better than okay, actually. In those terrible 3 years of pretending everything was fine, I'd convinced myself that divorce would destroy them, that they needed an intact family at all costs, that splitting up would traumatize them forever. I was wrong. Sure, the first few months were hard. Emma cried sometimes. Jack had some regression bedwetting, came back briefly, he got clingy. They were grieving too, in their way, but with time and with consistent presence from both me and Evelyn, they adjusted. What helped? Evelyn and I stayed committed to co-parenting effectively. We weren't perfect, but we were decent. We showed up to school events together, coordinated on homework and activities, texted each other updates, put the kids first even when we disagreed. I remember Emma's 5th grade graduation. Evelyn and I sat next to each other not because we had to, but because that's what was best for Emma. She saw us both there, together but separate, supporting her. After the ceremony, she hugged us both. "Thanks for coming," she said. "We wouldn't miss it, sweetie," Evelyn replied. "I know, that's why it's nice." Simple words, but they meant everything. She knew she had 2 parents who loved her, even if we weren't married anymore. Jack's anxiety improved. The nightmares stopped. The bedwetting stopped. His teacher told me he seemed lighter this year. One evening, while I was tucking him and he was 9 now, "Still allowed me to do this," he said. "Dad, can I tell you something?" "Always, buddy. I'm glad you and Mom got divorced." My heart clenched. "Really?" "Yeah, because you're happy now, and Mom seems happy. And when you're both happy, you're nicer to me and Emma." "We were never not nice to you guys." "No, but you were sad even when you smiled. Now your smiles are real. Out of the mouths of babes again. You're a pretty smart kid, you know that." "I know," he said with a grin. "Good night, Dad." "Good night, buddy." Emma, now heading into middle school, was old enough to have more complex feelings about the divorce. She asked hard questions. "Why did Mom cheat? Why did you stay so long? Are you going to get married again? Do you still love Mom?" I answered honestly, age-appropriately. "Yes, your mom made a bad choice. I stayed because I thought it was best for you guys, but I was wrong. Maybe someday I'll get married again, but I'm in no rush. And no, I don't love your mom romantically anymore, but I respect her as your mother and as a person." She seemed to accept this. "Okay, I just wanted to know. My friend Lucy's parents got divorced and they hate each other and fight all the time. I'm glad you and Mom don't do that." "We try not to. It's better for us when you don't." "I know, honey." The 50-50 custody schedule that had terrified me turned out to work well. Yes, I missed them on the nights they weren't with me, but I was also present with them in a way I hadn't been when I was drowning in misery. And the nights they were with Evelyn, I had time for myself. Time to date, to see friends, to pursue hobbies, to just be a person instead of only a dad. It made me a better dad when I did have them. 2 years after the separation, I found myself in a place I hadn't expected, genuinely happy. Not happy in a manic, overcompensating way. Not happy because I was distracting myself from problems. Happy in a quiet, steady, this is my life and I'm good with it way. I'd started painting. Random, I know. But I'd always been vaguely interested in art, and post-divorce, I had time to actually try things. Took a class at a local community center. Turned out I was terrible at it, but I didn't care. The process was meditative. I joined a book club. All men, middle-aged like me, reading literary fiction and then arguing about it over beers. I hadn't realized how much I'd missed intellectual conversation with peers. I reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with during the marriage crisis. Guys from college, former coworkers, friends from my 20s who drifted away when I'd been consumed with family life. I took Emma and Jack camping, just us 3. We hiked, fished, told stories around a campfire, slept in a tent, got rained on, laughed until our sides hurt. "This is the best trip ever," Jack declared. "Better than Disneyland," I teased. We'd gone to Disneyland 2 years ago during the pretend everything is fine phase. Way better. "Because you're actually here this time." He was right. At Disneyland, I'd been physically present but mentally absent, just going through the motions. On this camping trip, I was fully there. I also started therapy around dating and relationships. I'd been on and off the apps for 2 years now, had dated casually, but I realized I had work to do before I could be in a healthy relationship. "I don't want to repeat patterns," I told Dr. Connor. "I don't want to end up in another marriage where I'm so focused on not failing that I miss all the signs something's wrong." We worked on my people-pleasing tendencies, my difficulty setting boundaries, my fear of conflict, my need to be seen as the good guy. I learned that I could be a good person without being a doormat, that I could prioritize my own needs without being selfish, that healthy relationships require honest communication, even when it's uncomfortable. Eventually, about 3 years post-separation, I met Caroline. She was a nurse, divorced for 5 years, 1 kid in college. We matched on an app, went for coffee, talked for 3 hours. It was easy, natural. No games, no pretense. We took it slow, really slow. Dated for 6 months before we even discussed exclusivity. Another year before we met each other's kids. Emma and Jack liked her. Not in a trying to replace mom way, she never tried to do that, but as dad's girlfriend who's nice to us and makes him happy. Caroline understood complicated family dynamics. She'd been through her own divorce. She got it. We weren't rushing toward marriage. Maybe someday, maybe not. What mattered was that I was in a relationship that was healthy, where I could be fully myself, where communication was open and honest, where there was genuine affection and respect and compatibility. After 3 years of dead marriage and 3 years of healing, I'd found something real. Interesting thing about divorce, you split your life, but your ex's journey continues parallel to yours, especially when you share kids. Evelyn had her own process to go through, her own healing, her own growth. The first year after separation was hard for her too. She'd had to sit with the full weight of what she'd done, not just the affair, but the years of aftermath, the damage to Emma and Jack, the destruction of our family. She went to intensive therapy, worked on her own patterns. Why had she cheated? What needs was she trying to meet? What was she running from? She'd spent 3 years having me as the villain in her narrative. I was emotionally distant. I didn't pay attention to her. I didn't make her feel valued. The affair was almost justified in her mind because I'd somehow driven her to it. In therapy, she had to confront the reality that no, my flaws didn't justify her choices. She'd had agency. She could have talked to me about her unhappiness, could have suggested couples counseling before the affair, could have asked for what she needed. Instead, she'd taken the coward's way out and found validation elsewhere. This realization was painful for her. I know because she told me, about 2 years post-separation, when we were having a surprisingly honest conversation after picking up Emma from a school event. I blamed you for years, she admitted. For my affair, for our failed marriage, for everything. But in therapy, I had to own that I made those choices. You weren't perfect, but I'm the one who cheated. Thanks for saying that, I said. I'm not perfect either. I stayed too long and punished you for it instead of just leaving. We were both trapped in a pattern we couldn't break. Yeah, but we broke it eventually. She nodded, better late than never. Evelyn had started dating too. Nothing serious yet, but she was open to it. She'd had to work through her own fear of intimacy, her own patterns of seeking validation from men, her own tendency to avoid conflict until things exploded. The kids told me about some of her dates. I was fine with it, genuinely. I wanted her to be happy, not for her sake particularly, but because happy parents made for happy kids. One day, Jack mentioned that Mom had gone on a 3rd date with someone named Trevor. He's nice, Jack reported. He brought us pizza. That's good, buddy. As long as he's good to you and your mom, he is. He's not trying to be our dad or anything, just Mom's friend. Smart guy, this Trevor. Evelyn and I had become. Not friends exactly, but friendly. Civil, respectful, good co-parents. We texted regularly about the kids, coordinated schedules without drama. Attended events together without tension. Split costs fairly, compromised when needed. The fact that we could do this after everything felt like its own kind of success. 4 years after D-Day. 1 year after the divorce was finalized. Emma was now 12, Jack was 10. We were at Jack's Little League championship game. Our son, was playing second base. The kid had developed into a real athlete fast, coordinated, competitive in a healthy way. Evelyn and I sat in the bleachers together. Her with her parents, me with mine. Caroline couldn't make it, she was working, but she'd sent Jack a good luck text that morning. Emma was with friends a few rows up, trying to be too cool to sit with the parents, but still watching every play intently. Jack's team was up by 2 runs in the last inning. Jack had hit a double earlier and made 2 good defensive plays. I was so proud I thought I might burst. As we watched him field a grounder and throw to first for the final out, game over, his team won. Evelyn reached over and squeezed my hand. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't even particularly significant. But it was complete. A moment of shared joy in our children, free from the weight of everything that had happened between us. When Jack ran off the field, Grinning, covered in dirt, his teammates mobbing him, he looked up into the stands and saw all of us celebrating him. After the team had collected their trophies and we'd taken what felt like 1,000 photos, we went out for ice cream, all of us together. It wasn't awkward, it wasn't forced, it was just a family. A different configuration than the traditional nuclear family, but a family nonetheless. My father pulled me aside while everyone else was ordering. I was wrong, he said. About what? When you and Evelyn split up, I thought you were making a huge mistake. Thought you should have tried harder. But watching you now, watching the kids, watching how you all are together, I was wrong. This is healthier. Thanks, Dad, you're a good father. Better than I gave you credit for. Coming from him, stoic, traditional, not given to emotional displace, that meant everything. That night, after I dropped Emma and Jack back at Evelyn's house, I sat on my apartment balcony with a beer and thought about the journey. 4 years ago, I discovered my wife's affair and made the decision to stay. I thought I was being noble. Selfless, putting my kids first. I was actually being afraid, cowardly, hiding behind staying for the kids to avoid facing the scary unknown of divorce. Those 3 years of staying had been the worst of my life. I'd lost myself, lost joy, lost any sense of what it meant to be happy. But getting out, finally having the courage to end it, had been my salvation. The kids were thriving. Evelyn had grown as a person. I'd rebuilt myself from the ground up. We'd all come through it, functional, capable of happiness. I'd learned so much about myself, about relationships, about what I was willing to tolerate and what I wasn't, about the difference between being a good father and being a martyr, about the importance of authenticity and the damage of pretending. Would I change anything if I could go back? I wish I'd left sooner. Wish I hadn't wasted 3 years. But I can't change the past, only learn from it. Staying in a bad marriage for the kids often hurts them more than helping them. Kids need authentic, happy parents more than they need an intact household. Martyrdom doesn't make you noble. It makes you resentful and teaches your children terrible lessons about relationships. Trust your gut. I knew, deep down, that staying was wrong. But I ignored my instincts in favor of societal pressure and fear. Forgiveness isn't mandatory. Everyone told me I needed to forgive Evelyn. Maybe someday I fully will. But I didn't need to forgive her to move on with my life. You can't heal in the same environment that made you sick. I spent 3 years trying to heal while still in the toxic situation. It wasn't until I left that real healing began. Life after divorce can be better than life during a bad marriage. So much better, I'm proof of that. Your children are more resilient than you think. They adjusted. They're okay. They're more than okay. Success isn't staying together. Success is being healthy, authentic, and present for your kids whether you're married or not. 5 years after D-Day. Emma is 13, Jack is 11. I'm 41 years old. Emma's in 8th grade, dealing with typical middle school drama and starting to think about high school. She wants to try out for the volleyball team. She's smart, sometimes painfully so, calling me out when I'm being ridiculous. Jack's in 6th grade, still playing baseball, also gotten into chess of all things. He's thoughtful, sensitive, asks questions about the world that I don't always know how to answer. They're both good kids. Really good kids, and they're okay. Despite the divorce, despite the chaos of their early childhood, despite everything, they're okay. Evelyn's been dating Trevor seriously for over a year. He seems like a good guy. The kids like him. I'm happy for her, genuinely. Caroline and I have been together for 2 years. We're talking about moving in together, maybe getting married eventually. No rush. We're taking our time, building something solid. My career's going well. I'm making more money than I ever did during my marriage. I've been able to save, invest, build security. I'm healthy. Physically, mentally, emotionally, I work out regularly. Still see Dr. Connor occasionally for maintenance. Have a solid friend group. Hobbies I enjoy. A life I'm proud of. Is it perfect? No, I still have hard days. I still occasionally think about those 3 years I wasted. I still have moments of regret about the whole situation. But I'm happy. Genuinely, fully, completely happy. The kids split their time between Evelyn's house and mine. The 50-50 arrangement still works. I miss them when they're with her, but I've learned to use that time productively. And when they're with me, I'm fully present. Last week, Jack asked me, Dad, if you could go back, would you have stayed married to Mom? I thought about lying, about saying something diplomatic, but Jack deserved the truth. No, buddy, I wouldn't have. We wasted 3 years pretending things we were okay when we were not. Those were hard years for all of us. He's 11. 11 years old and somehow understands what it took me years to learn. If you're reading this and you're in a similar situation, staying in a bad marriage for the kids, please hear me. You're not helping them. You're hurting them. Kids don't need an intact family. They need healthy parents. They need authenticity. They need to see what real happiness and real relationships look like. They need you to be brave enough to choose yourself, so you can show them it's okay for them to choose themselves when they're older and facing their own hard situations. Leaving doesn't make you selfish. Staying when you shouldn't doesn't make you noble. It took me 4 years to fully understand this. I hope it takes you less time. Life is too short to spend it miserable. Your kids' childhoods are too precious to spend them in a house full of pretense and resentment. Have the courage to get out. Do the hard work of healing. Build the life you actually want, not the one you think you should want. And your kids, they'll thank you for it someday. Mine already have. And you'll be better than you ever imagined possible. I'm living proof.